Hi, everyone. Welcome to Marianne's house, which is my video podcast, my spiritual video podcast that I do weekly on Wednesday nights. And I'm Marianne Goldweber. I'm a spiritual teacher, medium clairvoyant, and owner of a Village Personal and Spiritual Development Center. And tonight we have a special guest with us, which is Sara. Pronounce your last name for me.
Szelagowski.
Szelagowski. I always say it wrong. My maiden name is very ethnic too.
Yeah.
So anyway, so tonight we're coming to you live because we're going to do a little bit of discussion about Sara. Sara actually is the founder and director of a nonprofit called Project White Butterfly. And it's a wonderful organization. And I just love you.
Oh,
and
I love you.
I'm all about encouraging people to step out of their comfort zone and learn new things. And, and that's the work you do, is destigmatizing stuff.
Yes.
And again, people fear what they don't understand. And that's what we're here to do, is we're here to bring people different spiritual awarenesses and understandings of, what people face in the world and how we can all be part of the solution.
Right. Yeah.
That's what we're doing tonight.
It's very cool being here, seeing her whole setup and how this all goes.
Yeah. Well, I've been doing it a while. Oh my
I know
God.
you have.
I am the person who doesn't like asking for help.
Mm-hmm.
So I, like you.
Yeah.
And, so I've reinvented the wheel the whole way. But yeah, starting this video podcast was something that COVID forced me into. I was going to do it, and I kept putting it off. And then as COVID started to hit, I bought the microphone and the camera
Right.
and all the stuff.
I
and
remember
thought,
when you got the microphone. You were so excited.
Like,
You're like, hey guys, I'm here.
I'm here. I don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
So, and that's when I put the googly eyes on myself.
Okay, yeah,
The
yeah,
filters.
yeah.
Oh my God! Do you know my son's friend screenshotted that?
Did he?
And they put it out on Facebook.
Yeah.
They're like, look at you, Mom.
That's the best.
They lost their shit watching me
that's
do
funny.
that. So anyway.
Love it.
So so it's really interesting. So in my and I'm going to acknowledge who's joining us here in a second, but it's very interesting how the universe leads us all to all the things that are happening in our lives and the people that just show up, and it's really a miracle. You know, when we can step back and watch those God moments unfold. So Sara and I are going to just have a pretty casual conversation about spirituality, how we met, my vision and mission, and her vision and mission, and how we all kind of came together. And it's really just fascinating.
Mm-hmm.
It
It is. I always say the older I get, the smaller the world seems. And we'll get into it, but I met Marianne through a mutual friend, and then learned that we have multiple mutual friends and a whole mutual community and all of that. So
it really is
cool.
6 degrees of connection. And when you really start to stand back and just watch that kind of unfold,
Right.
it's pretty interesting.
Yeah.
I'm 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon or Marianne Goldweber, just depending on how you look at it. Oh, who's here? Janine. Hi, Janine. Thanks for joining us. We have 8 viewers. Let us know you're here so we can acknowledge you.
Hi, Monica.
Monica. Do you know Monica?
I don't. I just wanted to say hi because I saw her pop up.
Yeah. We're not going to look at ourselves because that's...
Yeah, that's weird.
I get
Thank
distracting.
You.
No,
Okay.
you're welcome.
Yeah.
We're going to look at the comments instead. So, so I, through a series of very cataclysmic and awful events, I was forced out of my career in banking because I had debilitating hand surgeries. And during this time, I was having this is not for me. I don't know what, and my whole life was kind of coming unglued. So I had 4 hand surgeries. I actually had Jared at the same time. And then I found out that I was getting divorced. And I opened a business all in 1 year. Girl, I thought
Right,
I
I
was losing my
remember
shit.
your
Well, and that
crazy-
is it. And that's really when things start slipping out of your control, and the only place to look is up. That's what happened.
Absolutely.
And so whether we're talking about that in a spiritual sense, that is how it works, is we get these series of awakenings during our life. But again, we think we're in control of it all. We think we know what we're doing, and we're just kind of bumping along until things really just like
hit the fan.
hit the fan and come
And drop
unglued.
out.
I always said my life I was like hanging onto this sweater, this thread, and it just kept unraveling. And before I knew it, I'm laying on my floor,
Right.
Asking God for help. So, and again, I was already having these spiritual awarenesses, but I was still not surrendering and giving in.
Right. We get to that point where we're like, I know this isn't right. I know this isn't how it's supposed to go, but I'm going to push through it a little bit longer. I'm
Well-
going to keep going, and then it's going to be okay.
Exactly. So, but even before that, I had been introduced through some of the issues I was having in my life. I grew up in a traumatic environment. I had issues with alcohol and other things, and so I was introduced to the recovery community early on. I've been to Al-Anon. I did AA. But those two really never really resonated with me as much as I work more of a Codependence Anonymous
Right.
program, which is more of emotional addiction issues. And, so anyway, but I was also incredibly spiritual the whole time. And that was really the kind of the mortar between the bricks of all the stuff. And that's really when my greatest healing started, was when I surrendered and decided I was just going to do what the universe told me to.
Yeah, right. Just listen.
Yeah, well, I'm very willful. But again, so I've always, my life has always been of service since that point, where even my son has always been part of my life, and because it was just me and him. And so I would take him to all the things that I did. We'd drive people to rehab. We would do outreach. We would have 12-step coffee club. We'd have recovery people in. And so he's always been exposed to those things. And so this was always the biggest part. But when I was in the recovery community, there weren't very many resources.
Right, right.
And so then with the heralding of the epidemic that started in the 90s, with, a lot of the opioids and all that stuff, and it was just a slippery slope, and it just got worse and worse. And so, so it's so different, and there's so many more resources, and there's people who are finding their purpose in their story. So,
absolutely.
So Sara and I met through a friend.
Yep.
And Sara had a party. So the psychic work for me is really about, it's how I make the money to do this other stuff, you know?
Right.
But it gives me a chance to meet a huge group of people at one time.
Right.
And it's so interesting because I was headlining at the Palace Theater, and I was standing backstage, and I looked out there, and I'm thinking, how am I going to inspire all these people? And my little voice said, you're not here for all these people. You're here for one. You just don't know which one it is.
Yeah.
So at every event, the thing that gets me up in front of those people is not trying to influence all of them, but God brought me there for one.
Right.
And I always meet the one.
Right.
And so even when it's a channeling event,
Yeah.
or I'm at some event anywhere, these psychic events, I get to meet the one.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's more than one.
Right.
And then that one leads to, these
these
spin-off
relationships and like the networking and stuff. Yeah.
And then you get to see,
Right.
well, that's why I love Facebook for this. People are like, we have 35 mutual friends. I'm like,
I know.
yeah, I've been doing this a long time.
I know. And I love when people message me. They're like, do you know so-and-so? And I was like, not really. Well, you're friends with them. Okay, then we're friends too.
Well, and again,
Sure.
because I have people friended on my Facebook. But again,
Right.
I've been in these different communities for so long that, we do have, you and I have a lot of mutual friends.
Yeah. Yeah.
But like I said, and a lot of the people I know are, they've been sober a really long time, and I'm meeting new people all the time. But my old timers, they're old timers now,
Right, right.
Or they're not with us anymore.
Right.
And that's the really hard part. So what I do in that community is I serve by helping people as they're awakening with their admission of their powerlessness over their addiction. What I've come to understand is that the underlying thing with addiction is trauma and grief and neglect. And so helping people through that process of working through those things from a spiritual perspective offers a level of healing. And so that's kind of the missing component in some of this other stuff. So
Right.
so that's how I've served in this community for so long. So
Right.
the outreach work I do, whether I'm at a sober house or whether I'm just doing outreach one person at a time, that's work I don't charge for. And I figured there was way too many nonprofits already. And because of my spiritual work professionally, it creates a kind of conflict of interest for me
Right.
too.
Right.
Because I don't charge for that, but certain things I do. So when you guys have readings and parties and those things, it really allows me, to pay my bills and keep places like this open. But for me to be out there with people who can't pay for this,
Right. Right.
today.
Yeah.
And again,
And the parties are so fun.
oh my God.
They're so fun. She's like, prepare for like 2 or 3 hours. And I think the first party we were at was like 4.5 or something. And then when you came to my house, we were pretty close to 4 again.
Well, and it's hilarious because you don't even know 4 hours has gone by.
No.
No, you're
Not
like,
at
I
all.
mean, the time is so swirly when we're doing
Right.
that spiritual, doing that spiritual stuff. And, the level of peace and healing that comes from that, I think is just really,
Absolutely. It was, yeah.
Until you
like
experience
refreshing. It was so refreshing. That first channeling party that I was at with you, I was telling Marianne earlier, like, I was told to bring a notebook. So I brought a notebook and I was just like, yep, uh-huh. What did she say? Okay. What did she say? Did you get that? And like, I went home and I had this notebook and I was like, we get inspired by things. And so I was recharged for a while, just reading over some of these things. And like, I had heard them from other people, some of the stuff before, but you know how it takes, like, sometimes you hear a message from this person and then that person and this person, and then you hear from this person, you're like, oh, wow,
well, the cool thing
But-
about those parties is that you're hearing all the messages.
Right.
So,
right.
the universe isn't going to repeat themselves. So they're
Right.
sending that message through this one thing, and you're like, oh my God, that's me.
Right.
Then
Yeah.
it's for you. Write that down. And that's the beauty of it, is that you're getting these messages almost like, because if I point at some people and tell them, like, they can't handle that.
Right.
So I might point at you, and it's really for you and
Yeah.
the scaredy cat over here.
Yeah.
So
Do you ever find yourself at those being like saying something and knowing that it's for somebody else and being like, like trying to see if they're like resonating with it?
yeah, no, because that throws me off.
Yeah.
I can't look at people when I'm working because I'm paying attention to the visions that I'm getting and this
Yeah.
inner knowing.
Yeah.
And so it's distracting if I look at you.
Okay.
But it's so funny because I'll have people like Claire, she'll be in a party, or my sister or somebody,
Yeah.
or Becca. And it's so funny because, people try so hard to be straight faced and not like show me anything.
Right.
Well, first of all, I'm not looking at you anyway, and I don't really care because I'm here to really work for the other side. I'm not here to really like wow myself
Right,
with
right,
what I
right.
do. Although it is amazing, I can't lie. But anyway, so they'll, at the end of the event, my sister goes one day, she goes, Marianne, she goes, it's so funny. The person that looks like they're not getting anything will be the first person to walk up to you and say, that was amazing,
Right.
It's
true.
And so anyway, they're just trying really hard to not
Right.
give me anything. It doesn't work. That's not how this works. So anyway, who we got here? Let's look. We have Kat. Hi, Kat from Medina County. Josette. Oh, you know what, Josette? I gotta call you guys. We need to work some stuff out. I need to talk to you. Hey, Catherine. Well, thanks for joining us, guys. And so I'm very excited to have Sara with me. So Sara, let's talk about. So like for me, the village.
Mm-hmm.
I had received a communication from the universe that was very clear, telling me that the world was going to awaken, and the people were going to be lost because they have no ancestral ties or faith to cling to. So they worship the man on the money because that's the only grandfather they know. And I was going to be creating a village, and here we are.
And here we are.
Right, but that was almost 30 years ago. So it's like
It's amazing, though.
it really is.
so
And
good.
so as this our world starts to evolve and everything, all these systems aren't working, and we're creating inclusion, not separation. The village it was never about a place. It was really about connecting people to each other and faith and those
Right.
answers.
Right.
So that's been my calling.
Right.
I was told this is what I was supposed to do, so I took it very literally and did it. And so again, I'm a very firm believer that our pain does become our purpose,
Absolutely.
because how can we really ever have compassion for someone if we've never experienced things?
Right. Right.
So, so that's why I do the work. All of my experiences in my life have led me and groomed me to be compassionate and do this work with people.
Right.
So tell me how that kind of the universe led you.
Yeah. So, well, I have a history of substance use. Heroin and crack were my drugs of choice. And the last summer that I was using, I was pretty much living in like the upstairs of a trap house, windows closed, watching the world pass by while I was just stuck in this darkness. And literally only left my house to, meet my drug dealer, and come back home. And that was it, really. And so it was very isolating and dark and lonely and heavy and just very hopeless feeling. And so when I got to the rooms of recovery, it was a breath of fresh air, life and people excited and growing and all of this stuff. But there's also this, I don't know, there's a balance in the rooms because we have a lot of this life and growth, but we also have a ton of loss, and we have people who are still struggling, and we have friends who go back out, and we're seeing updates about them and mugshots popping up and all this, like the whole dark side of things. And
Or funerals.
So in 2018, my brother-in-law passed away from an overdose, and that was just watching like the family go through that process was really, really heavy and painful. And then the following summer in 2019, I went to a string of funerals. That was like the social scene for the summer was people's funerals that year. And so by the end of the summer, like August of that summer, it was heavy. It was just heavy. And some friends and I were feeling the weight of that. And we knew that pain that some of these people were feeling, and that darkness and that isolation and all of that. So we wanted to do something. And the hopelessness, absolutely. And so we wanted to do something and like reach out to them in a very non-confrontational, like not just busting in your door, hey, we're here to help you kind of thing. But
Not like the religious door knocker.
Right. We're not just going to come to your door knocking for you. So we started making up cards that had a white butterfly on them. That white butterfly was symbolic from when my brother-in-law had passed away. And we made up these cards that had a butterfly on them and some numbers for detoxes and a little inspirational handwritten message. And we went back to the neighborhoods where we had used or where we knew people were using or, just like the rougher areas, and hung the cards up on like telephone poles and bus stops, and fast food restaurant bathrooms was my place of choice to hang them because that's where I would go. I would go get drugs, stop in the bathroom at the nearest Wendy's and get high and then go. So we started doing that and started posting on social media what we were doing, and people just wanted to help. Like, it was crazy. Never ever did we set out to like have this be a thing. It was just something we wanted to do to feel better. That was like our healing process, And so we had a mom reach out who had lost her daughter, and she started writing notes for the cards. And then we had some other like schools reach out and say, we had our students write notes to put in these cards. And so it started to snowball, and I just continued to move my feet whenever an opportunity came up. I was like, sure, I'll do it, and somebody said you should get these cards printed. Sure, who do I talk to? And they gave me a name. So I picked up the phone and called, and the guy printed 2,500 cards for free for us. And it just, you always talk about things happening so organically. Like, that's what happened. This is like, I didn't endorse it. I was on social media posting about it a lot because it meant something to me and I was excited about it. And it was so beautiful to see all of these people connecting and having an outlet for their pain and having a therapeutic kind of practice to have. And so I just kept moving my feet, and lo and behold, one thing led to another, and someone from the recovery community reached out and said there's some grant opportunity, and we had already talked about becoming a nonprofit organization. And so, we had somebody file with the state for nonprofit status, and then we had this woman file for the grant, and like all the stuff just came together.
Started manifesting.
Yeah, but the most amazing part, so in January of 2020, I spoke at an Adams Board advocacy meeting, and the CEO of the Adams Board stood up and asked how we're funded. And I said, just from the generosity of good people. At that time we didn't have a whole lot of overhead. Yes. And on the way home, my dad said, wouldn't it be cool if like the Adams Board funded you? And the next day, I had driven to Akron for something, and I was on my way back, and I was like, you need to come up with a budget. You need just, like, an idea.
Popped in your head.
So I went home. I was crying, like, so excited about this. I'm writing down this number. I'm writing down these, like, sentences I could hear people saying, all of it. And I wrote the number down on a paper, and I circled it, and I wrote yes all over it, and I tucked it away, not thinking anything of it. I'm like, there it is. I have it if I need it. And 11 months later, when we did that grant funding, it was within $1,000 of that amount that was on that paper, and we got it. So that was like, that blew my mind. I still have that paper and all of that, but.
And so accepting the call, it's not what it seems. You know,
No.
it's not what it appears, and you're like you know. So that inspired thing, and we talk about inspiration all the time. So the word inspired means to breathe into in spirit, and so what's actually happening is these ideas are not ours.
Nope.
They're coming to us, and they're coming through us to be expressed through whatever our talent is to someone out there. And so when we block it with that not feeling good enough, when we block it with nobody's going to want this, you know, all that negative stuff, but it can't come through you.
Right.
And so you being open and allowing it through faith to know that, well, if this is what it's going to be, it's just going to show up, and it does.
Yeah.
So it's funny you mentioned that, writing that down.
Yeah.
So I get everything I get as a medium is in that inspired way.
Yeah.
Where I write things down.
Yeah.
That's how I originally started channeling.
Yeah.
So it was so funny because, you know, my guidance said, well, you know, you've got to create this village. And I'm like, who the hell am I to create a village, you know? So anyway, I was in this big transition from when I closed the herb store. I was accepting my full-time position as a spiritualist. And this is even before that. But so what I'd written down is what I wanted. So when I left my corporate career, I was like, okay, in 1 year, this is what I would like to see happen. I want to have my own. I want to have a storefront.
Yeah.
You know, I want it within, you know, this period of time. I want to make this much money, and
Yeah.
you know, blah blah blah. And to the day, 1 year to the
Right.
day. And so what I did is I left that be, because what I was doing is doing craft shows and all these things to, you know, just promote my love of herbs and teas and blah blah blah.
Right.
And I dragged Jared with me,
Right.
like
yeah.
you're dragging tea with you, you know. But you're not dragging them. This is
Right.
really, this is an education you cannot pay for. You know, is exposing them to all these wonderful things. And so anyway, so the day I found the herb store, I was sitting there at the light, and this man was nailing a for rent sign in this little house on Worcester Road, right on Center Ridge, and I'm like, that's cool. Isn't that cute? It's a little cottage, a little herb cottage. Wouldn't that be fun? So anyway, so I pulled in, and I said to the man, I said, you know, this is perfect for my business. He goes, well, it's only blah 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 money a month, and I'm like, I have nothing, right? But I had 2 craft shows that weekend, so I wrote him a check that there was no money in
With
the
no
account,
money.
right? But it was Friday, and I figured, okay, well, you know, if God blesses me, then, you know, anyway. Do you know how much I made that weekend?
Exactly that
The
amount.
exact amount.
Yep.
I ran across the street and told my ex-husband, I just rented a place. And he's like, what? Are you crazy? Like, where are you going to get the money? And it just appeared. And that's kind of how it's always been.
Yeah.
Is that, you know, if this is what the universe is calling us to, you know, I can only control my part of the road, and the rest
Right.
of it is beyond me. And so you just answer the call.
Yeah. Yeah. And some days it's a lot, and some days I have a tendency to complicate the call.
That's what we do. We're human.
I overcomplicate that call, and so it's always refreshing on the days where we have, you know, where we meet someone or make like this connection that, you know, literally changes the course of someone's direction. And I'm like, oh,
There it is.
it's that simple. It's that simple some days. The paperwork and all of that, it's overhead and things that we have to do. And so I try not to let myself stress out too much about that, and just focus on why we're doing what we're doing. And really, like you, it's to connect people.
Right.
It's to bring everybody together, because we're so programmed to think like about being independent, and I have to do this on my own, and I have to know how to do this and all of this stuff. And like, for me, I was so terrified to say, I don't know what to do. Can you help me? Can you show me how to do this? Those words couldn't come out of my mouth. And it led me to a needle in my arm, you know, because I couldn't say it. And even when I had a needle in my arm, I couldn't say, help me stop doing this. And I was screaming in my head every day. But
Well, but shame and guilt and all this other stuff prevents us from, and that isolation prevents us, and we think nobody will ever understand this.
Right. And these concepts like that I encounter now, meeting people where they are, that's like people think it's this groundbreaking idea, right?
Right.
And like that's what you've been doing for 30 years.
No,
You've
right.
been
Well,
meeting
people used
where
to
they are.
criticize me
Oh, I'm sure.
for giving like people money
Yeah.
or handing them some,
Yeah.
giving them, a handout.
Right.
Okay. But see, it's not about the money. It's not about the thing I'm
Right.
handing you.
Right.
It's insignificant. It's about, I'm holding your hand.
Mm-hmm.
I'm telling you that you're worth more than this.
Right.
And it's the ability to be able to connect with another human being.
Right.
On
And that
this kinda
opens
soul level.
that door for people, and then they know that they can call you or they can reach out to you,
Right.
and they
then
know
it
that
will-
shame's
so
not
again,
there.
the village is
Yeah.
really, and what you're doing is creating that grassroots thing as well. It's about connecting people to information and people that they can trust.
Right.
And
Yeah.
again, this is it's not for the faint of heart.
No.
And again, people say, how do you well, see, I know spiritually that every soul is having an experience for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not here to judge your experience. Okay, there's powerful lessons in this if you get them.
Right.
All I can do is hold the energy and hold you up while you're figuring it out.
Right.
Maybe give you some tools if you ask for it. Give you some, a sandwich, a pat on the back, a hug,
Right.
whatever connection is going to keep you going or
Right.
get you through. That's all I'm here to do.
Right.
And so it's not mine. It's not mine to judge, but the level of pain out in the world, it can be overwhelming. And that's why I created the village, so that other people can come here, fill up, get inspired,
Right.
be heard, so that you can go back out in the trenches and do what you do, where
Yeah.
you're at. And, Claire goes out in the world and does her thing where she's at. But
Right.
but when you come here, we're all out here doing God's work. I don't care what what you do for a living. It's not about the widget you make. It's not about the company you work for. It's really about the people you're connecting with.
Right.
You
Yeah.
know, God planted you at Key Bank. God planted me over here. God plants you where you're at, and together we're all sowing the same seeds.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know.
Truly. I love it.
And so the village is about coming here and filling up so that we can all go back out there and do what it is we have to do. To remember, because that world's rough out there, guys.
Right.
It tells you you're not enough. It tells you you're full of shit. It tells you that, this isn't helping anybody. Bullshit.
Right.
Bullshit. I will tell you that for a fact because, my dark voice says, this isn't helping anybody. You're delusional. And then you get that person who says, you made a difference to me today.
Right.
And that's fuel for the fire.
Right. And sometimes it's like the most random person from the sidelines that maybe you didn't even have direct contact with.
Exactly.
Those are the ones that really get me. Somebody that just watches like social media or shows up at an event and just watches you, like might not be the most chattiest person, might not engage a whole lot, but sits and watches all of this and is like, wow, there's more out there.
Right.
And those are the coolest.
Or they
ones.
come back in another time and say, just so you know, this led to this, and it's because
Right.
of
Right.
whatever interaction I had with you.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you have to trust, and this is where faith comes in, that we're being called to do this,
Yeah.
and we're just going to do it. If the universe tells me I got to go down to 90th and Kinsman and do this, then that's where I go. I don't ask why anymore, because when I get there, I find out why.
Right.
You
Right.
meet the one.
And that's what
There's the one.
people ask all the time. Aren't you nervous like going into some of these neighborhoods?
Girl.
And I'm like, I don't think I've
If they
ever
s-
had a day when I was like, nope, we're not doing this. Jasmine and I just pull up to these places and we're like, all right,
Girl,
and
we used to be in those neighborhoods all the time doing
yeah.
the wrong thing.
Right. Yeah. Well, and that's the other thing people ask too. Aren't you tempted? Doesn't that remind you of when you were getting high? Aren't you ever triggered? And literally, no, not ever.
Some
Because-
things about my old life just nauseate the shit out of me.
Right.
That I'm like,
It's literally like two different people. I'm like, that was really me that lived that life. Like the first time I drive down some street, sometimes it might pop up and I'll have like a memory or whatever, but it's never like, oh, I'm gonna pull in here.
Oh,
It's,
yeah, this looks like a good idea.
Right. It's never ever
newspapers
that.
on the windows.
It's
You're
just,
like, oh yeah, that looks like
thank
a fun
God.
place.
That's Jasmine and I say it all the time. Thank God.
But what does get triggered is the memory of the experience, and that doesn't mean you're gonna use.
Right.
That's just like, oh, I can't believe I've been here.
Right.
That I was here, and now I'm here. So going into those environments isn't as scary as people think, because we've
No.
seen some things.
Yeah.
People are like, aren't you afraid? Jared has me on GPS.
Yeah.
because he's afraid I'm going to
Keeps an
go
eye on
missing
you.
in the hood or something. Yeah. So, he goes, oh, how was so-and-so today? Or how was this today? Because he follows me around.
He sees where you are.
Yeah, because,
Yeah, I let people know where I am for sure. But
well, I do too.
Yeah.
But,
Not worried
there's
about
not as much risk as there was before. I mean, it's not like we're going down to some of these areas at midnight or 1 o'clock in the morning.
Right.
I mean,
Right.
it's during,
Which we could do some great outreach at that time, but.
Yes, absolutely, but, that's a little riskier. And, I'm a badass, but I'm also 61 now. I don't have the same. I think I'm a badass, but I'm good. It's like Toby Keith says, I'm good once,
Right.
but I'm not as good as I used to be.
Right.
I'm good for one good,
Yeah.
but that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't run as fast or as far, but I always joke that, what I lack in speed, I make up for in stealth.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I will outwit you, though.
All right. So we saw.
Oh, hey, Amy.
We saw hi. Okay.
So Amy says, do you think your inspiration might come from your brother-in-law who wants to help those here from the other side as well?
Oh, from when Justin passed. I think it comes from the other side, very much so.
The stage crew of whoever's.
Yeah, I think seeing his journey in the couple years that I did, and knowing that there was so much healing that needed to be done, and literally it was just like he didn't know where to start. And when he did make a start, some of the systems enforced some rules that kind of sent him spiraling almost. And so just seeing that series of events really opened my eyes to a few different things. And the day that he passed, I remember almost like, I don't know if it sounds wrong to say it, but I almost felt like a relief just knowing that he didn't have that weight on him anymore,
So this is why I deal with it's a very different grief when you're dealing with tragic death.
Yeah.
Especially with addiction, because especially people who love people who are addicts, that we're in very codependent relationships where we don't want to keep, because addiction, guys, it's a death sentence. Unless you get help, it will kill you. And the challenge is, as a family member or as somebody who loves somebody who's in that world, you lose a piece of yourself following them around, keeping them from trying to kill themselves. And a lot of people aren't aware of these resources, and this is exactly why both of us do this work, plus millions of others out there, which we'll, introduce you to. But anyway, but the grief, the thing that surprises people the most about the grief with death from addiction is the relief. And people feel guilty that they're relieved that their person is dead. And it's not that they're dead, that they're this is over.
Yeah. And I know for myself and for a couple people that I know in recovery who, like you said, have had relationships with people who are using, you get to the point where, sometimes your prayers for people change from please help this person to please just take this weight off of them in whatever way is needed. And I remember the first time one of my sponsees called me, and she was just she was so upset, and she's like, Sara, I feel terrible, but this is where I'm at. She's like, it doesn't matter which way. She said, seeing this person do this and being so lost and so broken and so desperate and just scratching at the surface, and me saying, just take that away from them however it's the best, she felt really guilty for that. And I said, you know what, I understand. I've been there. I've felt the same way about certain situations, because they're just so heavy that I don't feel like as humans sometimes that we can handle that kind of thing.
Well, and this is that part of grief where we have to work through that stuff, because it is a relief, because now at least you know where they are. As when they're out there, we really aren't necessarily being proactive in the right ways sometimes. But like I said, there's so many more resources, guys. If you find yourself in this situation, give me a call. We'll connect. This is what I do. I'm like Google.
Yeah.
I connect people to information.
Right.
I connect people to resources, and I help them find strength in their ordeal to be able to, come to better decisions and choices. And
you're like Google, but you're such a more, and for us too, so part of the reason that we started including resources and we help connect people is that when you do Google things, you get 37,000 things, and then some of the numbers are California,
Well, and they're ads.
and right, and they're ads, and you don't know what the service actually is. And so being able to go and speak to someone who actually knows about these things and knows what the services they offer are and what the building looks like, just telling people what a building looks like sometimes is enough to be like, oh, okay, yeah, maybe I'll go there.
So I want to answer Amy's question real quick. So as somebody who channels people who passed away, every soul takes an experience. And, it's anybody's game what we're going to choose down here and how we choose it. But part of it is that some people aren't going to make it the whole way. And they're not really just here to learn something. They're also here to teach. So their living and their dying is actually still teaching. And I have a client whose son passed away from an overdose. And he was on life support. And during that time that he was on life support, there were so many things that were going on behind the scenes. Like the person who actually injected him and left him there. I ministered to his friends who were waiting.
Right.
About addiction and whatever and their trauma. And during that time, it was decided that he would become an organ donor. So his family got to meet the 8 recipients of his organs.
Wow.
And so as he was peacefully laying there in that state, he was actually outside the body. And he said to me, I think I broke it. And he meant the body. He goes, so I don't really know if I'm allowed back yet, but he was with his grandma and grandpa. And so he was peacefully waiting. And so I know that some souls take such an awful, painful experience, but I kind of see them like martyrs. They're taking one because the power of their living and dying is affecting so many people that you can't even see.
Right.
That the needs of the many sometimes outweigh that need of the one.
Right.
And that soul took a painful journey to awaken a lot of people simultaneously.
Right.
Half those kids are sober today because of him. And every time I tell this story, he's still teaching.
Absolutely,
And
right.
so when you say, are they helping us from the other side? Yes, absolutely. Because if it wasn't for me having that experience as a minister in that situation, and doing the work I do, he's still with us teaching. He's
Right,
still,
right.
So every time that story pops in my head to share with a parent or share with someone, that's him telling me, please
Right.
tell my story.
Right. And that's what we have. So we designed a Dispelling Stigma gallery that we set up at like different businesses and like public venues and things like that. And in that gallery, we include a little excerpt of a story that a young woman wrote. I never met her, never knew her. She didn't live in my state. I found it in a Facebook group one time. Her mom had reposted it, and it resonated with me. I understood everything in that. I showed it to someone who didn't have a history of substance use, and they were like, oh my God, that's so heavy. And I'm like, that's what it's like. And so we chose to include this. And so now hundreds of people are seeing her story,
Right.
and I have contact with her mom because I contacted her mom and asked permission to include this and stuff. And her mom's so grateful, that her daughter's words are out there still. And she actually she typed up the whole story that this girl Taylor had written and sent it to us. She's like, so if anybody's really curious, here's the whole story. And she's got pictures with it, and it's beautiful, and I can't imagine the pain of losing a child, but her mom is so willing to share those words because she knows that that's part of Taylor's purpose.
Well, and it's so beautiful.
Every time, like that's,
Well, and you can't not be affected by this work.
no. No.
It's almost so divine that it takes your breath away. And I've met people that aren't really human. I've met people that are really here just to teach. They're just angelic figures that are here to affect this world, like the homeless guy you see on the street. He's not really a homeless guy. He's really angelic, and there's this beautiful Bible quote, which I love, different schools of thought. But it said, so many times that when we entertain strangers, we are entertaining angels unaware.
Yep.
And so,
I actually wrote that quote out for my dad one time, and I don't remember why. Like, I found that quote online somewhere, and I wrote it out, and he had it for the longest time sitting, like, in the top of his closet, so he would see it in the morning. Yeah, but
And I have met these people.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I have met the most amazing, angelic figures, which in that moment it's so profound, and then they're just gone.
Right.
And it can only be that. That's all it can be. And so I'm just telling you guys, have faith. And, when we step out on faith every day, I step out, I don't sell yo-yos or, widgets.
Right.
I am the product. The thing I give you is not tangible. But it is something that you can feel, and it's something you can take with you. I used to give people little rocks after every reading, just so
Yeah.
they had something tangible.
Yeah.
To remind them of this session together.
Right.
And I can still do that. But again, it's not a tangible thing. But I know that when you leave me, that this is between you and God now.
Right.
I've just done my part in connecting you to that
Right.
source of information, and so I love what you're doing. I'm so proud of you.
I love what you're doing too, and I'm super inspired by you. I mean, just knowing the weight of the work that we do, and knowing that you've done it for 30 years, I'm like, oh my gosh, she's got to be so tired.
Well, and I have to tell you guys, not everybody can do this work. Okay, and this is what is overwhelming for most people when it comes to volunteerism. They don't know how to serve. Like, oh my God, I can't go in and do that. Like, I would be like a mess. And again, when death is your business, I have a different relationship with death and the way I see it and all of that.
Yeah.
Just like you.
Yeah, mine has definitely changed for sure.
And so it's not that we don't get sad, or I get more sad with why there's still suffering in the world and why we're still allowing this
Right.
to happen. And that's, for me, this is where I become, I get in my soapbox and become like, that, I don't know if you've ever seen the movie with Norma Ray. Have you ever seen that movie? Oh my God, you gotta watch that. You and I mean, where she stands on her desk and she's like fighting the system. I mean, that is who I would love to be.
Yeah.
But we are fighting the system, and we are bringing people together and raising awareness. So if you guys want to serve, I don't recommend you just going down to hospice and serving, okay? It's very difficult to work in some of these environments. So what you can do is support us while we're out here doing the work. Like, there's things that you can do behind the scenes. If it wasn't for the generous people having parties, or people having readings, or people just donating money on my website, or because I don't get funding, I'm a for-profit. Although most of what I do goes to nonprofit, I pay tax on all that. So the thing is that support people that are in the trenches. You don't have to be out there doing it with us, guys, because let me tell you, your moral support and you showing up and cheering us on, or just coming to an event, it gives us hope that people give a shit. Because this is very lonely work.
It is. It is.
Yes.
because yes, it really is. And I think that's been like the biggest shocker for me in the last year. Because when I was doing this before it became like my job, I was doing it in my spare time, and it was like that fun thing I got to do when I was done working. And now it doesn't feel like work. Don't get me wrong on that.
No, it doesn't feel like work.
At the end of the day, some days I want to be dark, quiet, like no contact with anybody. There's been so much of my energy put out there that like I have to shut off, and then I feel guilty about shutting off and not, turning my phone off for a day. I'm like, oh my God, who's out there?
Well, but we also need to connect with other people, get that, and that's what this is about.
Right.
I had probably 7 of the most powerful women sitting at that table that one day at a village event.
Yeah.
And it was so cool because they all feel like they're not good enough.
Right.
They're all leaders in the community.
Right.
They're all leading in these really just amazing places, and they all don't feel like they're enough.
Yeah.
And that they feel isolated in that nobody gets it. And nobody gets that. So, and so that's powerful. So if you guys want to serve, there's so many ways to serve. So if you go to White Butterfly Project, Project White Butterfly actually,
.org,
or you go to MarianneGoldOver.com. There's a donate button. There's products and resources, and and so we'll be linking all these things together. And if you guys have any questions, or you're facing something and you don't know what to do, call Sara, call me. Our stuff is we're so public. I'm like I always say I'm like social like a disease. I mean. I mean, people are like,
Literally.
somebody's going to steal my identity. Nobody wants to be me, okay? You can go ahead and try.
Right.
Yeah, it comes with a whole bag of nuts, okay? So I'm just saying, nobody wants to be Marianne Goldweber.
You're so funny.
But again, we all do need your support. And so
Mm-hmm.
if you can't be out here with us doing the work, or if you want to come out and do the work,
Right. Yeah.
I mean,
come
we're
out
all
with
about,
us.
yeah, come on out and serve. Oh my God,
Make
it's so
cards.
rewarding.
Yeah.
We need moms out there. You know, we need dads out there.
Yeah.
We need, you know, if you're suffering, the best way to heal your pain is to share that with somebody else.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's one of the things that we've seen a lot of too, is these parents who have lost their children. They just want to share their story and be able to, you know, reach
Love
that
somebody.
other mom who's, you know, dealing with it silently, or, you know, doesn't have somebody to talk to. And so we created community safe space. Just like Marianne created a village, we have a community safe space where people can come and the last Sunday of every month just talk about, you know, knowing someone who has substance use disorder and all the stuff that causes.
Well,
in our lives.
and again, now that I've got this thing set and settled, now you will see me out there
Right.
doing outreach
Yeah.
with you. I mean, I love, this is my favorite part of the work, guys.
Yeah.
So I love the parties, and I love readings, and I love the psychic work of what I do.
Right.
But for me, that's just, that's not, the work for me is really helping people through whatever their soul came here to experience, and reach this higher understanding.
Right.
And so it's been an amazing thing.
Yeah.
I
Absolutely.
mean, I get to meet people like Sara. There's so many people out here doing just all these cool things. And when you come here, you get to meet them, you know? So on my Serenity Sunday, or when you come have an event or come to an event, you're going to meet people that are out there doing just the coolest shit.
Right.
But I want to bring you on today.
Right. And it's really fun, the networking that goes on at stuff like that. It's just so cool.
Oh, it's like, yeah, having
it's-
those 6 women at that table that day.
Yeah.
They were all, you know, talking about what they're doing. And so now everybody at that table understood.
Right.
And they could not only support each other emotionally, but now they're networked, and
Right.
now they're connected.
Right. It's like this little catalyst that happens.
Right.
And like,
And when you watch this ripple get created,
Yeah.
it's just so amazing
Yeah.
to me. I'm just sitting there going, these people would not have met each other.
right. Right. And that,
Had I not
and-
taken the risk and did what the universe told me,
yeah.
and just did this,
I think that's another lesson, like in my journey, is, you know, being put in situations with people that I wouldn't reach out and talk to, or I wouldn't normally associate with, but being put in those situations with one, you know, we just have like one common thread in each situation that I'm in, and then it just explodes into all these other things that happen. Yeah,
that's the wild part
the
of it.
universe is real cool.
Oh, the things they have called me to do, I'm like, you really?
Yeah.
So I did this, the universe told me I had to say yes to every opportunity one week.
Oh God.
I'm like, oh, for God. I feel like Yes Man. Did you ever watch
Yeah.
Yes Man?
Yeah, I love it.
I'm less resistant than him, but I'm like, really? Okay. So out of nowhere, I got this email, and it said, we're offering people an opportunity to be a radio host with their own show down at the CDC on Kinsman. You know the CDC over there
Yeah.
on Kinsman?
Yeah.
Okay, well, they have their own radio broadcast,
Right.
FM station.
Right.
So I went down there and took the class. Okay, it had nothing to do with me having a radio show. I was number one in the class, though, I have to say, because, you know, I'm an overachiever. Anyway, I met probably 20 people.
Right.
It had nothing to do with the radio show. It was
Right.
about me showing up. I would never have met these people had I not taken that opportunity.
Right.
So this is what I was on, this weird adventure from the universe. Oh my God, that's how I met Dolores Gray. This is how I met all these people. And it was so funny because they're like, what are you doing here? I go, I don't know.
I don't know.
God told me to come, and here I am. So
I don't know,
I'm
I'm here,
open to
but I'm here.
whatever.
Yeah.
And it's just beautiful when you say yes to these opportunities.
Yeah.
I don't know how it's going to work out. But I know there's a reason. And when you get there, you meet the one. You meet the one. And that's it. So why are you going down here today? I don't know. We're going to find out, though.
Right. Yep.
And sometimes it's just about showing the universe that you're willing. You know, this is what I'm telling you guys. You got to step through your fear. I mean, what's the worst thing that's going to happen?
Right. I had never, so in so many things over the last couple years, you know, I'm doing things that I've never done. Like you talk about technology. You're like, I had to learn all this stuff, like paperwork for work and stuff. I had to learn how to do that stuff. And these are things not only was I afraid to do, but I was afraid to do these things when it was just me that I had to worry about. Now I have a son, you know,
Right.
just like you had Jared when you were doing
Yeah,
the
there's
herb
no
shop and
quitting.
stuff.
You can't quit.
Right. There's no quit. And if this fails, then how am I going to feed my kids? So keep the backup ramen in the cupboard, you know,
Right.
like I don't know. But
It takes a
does.
village.
I cried when I found out I was pregnant. I was like, what am I going to do? He's not going to have any toys. And I don't know. Please. This child, my house is full of toys, and the boy is fine. So
So when Jared was like 5,
Everything's
and he's
okay.
going to hate me for saying this, because I never thought I was going to be a mom.
Mm-hmm.
I was 36 years old,
Mm-hmm.
and we'd lived a life, and had our shit together at that point. And so when Jared was 5, he said, Mommy, he goes, I looked from the other side down on you, and I said, she needs me.
Mm.
He said,
Oh
so
my God.
I said, uterus, get me an egg.
Oh, that's so funny.
And he was right. I needed him. He saved my life. And, if it
Yeah.
wasn't, there were days that if it was just me, I would have quit.
Right. For sure.
But quitting was not an option.
Right.
Right. And so, he is my soulmate. A lot, we're all soulmates to each other.
Yeah.
We meet each other just at the right time. It's all divine.
There's one day in my head that I know if I didn't have my son, I would have picked back up again. I know I would have. But that having him in the house and having to protect him got me out of that house. So, yeah.
The day I truly surrendered, I went down like a bad 2-year-old, okay? But I'm just telling you, the day I laid on that floor and I surrendered, the only reason I surrendered was because my son would have had nowhere to go.
Yeah.
And that's what made me surrender
Yeah.
and give up and give in. Not give up, but give in.
Give in. Right.
And and everything
Right.
went, and
give
everything
up.
changed. Like this warm feeling came over me.
I know.
So he did save my life.
Yeah.
On so many ways, because again, there were days I did it for me. There were days I did it for him, and but you keep doing it.
Yeah.
You keep doing it, and I'm so proud of you, Sarah.
Thank you.
I'm so grateful that God brought you into our life.
I know.
All right, let's see who we got.
Mm-hmm.
Good
I feel like
Lord.
we've been talking a lot more than usual. You keep up with comments.
I
usually more than
do. Yeah. So the people on the other side are really, they are helping because now they're above this life and they've seen how they could have done it differently, and so our stage crew are the things that were in our life that are here to really help us navigate. So that little voice that says do that is your brother-in-law or grandma or whoever. They see what we need. So William says, I'm in the Alpha House in Oberlin now, doing real good right now. Oh, William, we're so proud of you. Good for you. It's a safe place where you're going to
I've heard Alpha House is amazing.
get it together.
There's a few of them.
Well, we'll have to come out and visit them.
Yeah, we should.
Maybe William will come out and see you. Amanda says hi. Hi, Amanda. Rhonda. When my dad passed away from addiction, you told me he had not reached out to me from the other side because I was mad at him for leaving. And there are rules on the other side. What does that mean? Well, so when someone passes away, it initiates this process of loss of the human being. Now, we're not just grieving the loss of the person, we're grieving our relationship with them. So whether it was good, whether it was bad, how they died, was it tragic, was it illness, all of those things bring a different dynamic to it. And so was it your parent, was it your child, was it your partner? All of those things create a grief. So again, when you die from addiction, you get out of that body and you are instantly clear. I always say it's like the biggest buzzkill ever.
Yeah.
Because you're out of the damaged brain and all the broken stuff. And so you're standing there seeing exactly the truth. It's the worst awakening. It's easier to wake up while we're alive than it is over there. So when you get over to the other side, once you leave this human life, you are not allowed to selfishly interfere in the lives of humans because you're done. And you're not allowed to interfere in our life. Now, they can offer us suggestions, but our grief gets in the way of that communication quite often because they're in a process of figuring it out and having to look at the whole thing and take ownership. And we're down here processing the loss of the person and our shoulda, coulda, wouldas and our guilt and grief and all that. And so they have to be in a place in their process, and we have to be in a place in our grief.
Everybody's kind of got to be like at a peaceful place.
Right, we have to get to the point where we have to let go
Yeah.
of the human being before we can accept them in their new form.
Yeah.
But that's a process, and this is what I help people through is that grief process.
Yeah.
So again, the best way to hear from people, and so this is why, if you got anything to say, Rhonda, to folks that are on the other side, girl, write them a letter and burn it. They know who they were. God doesn't judge you. You hold yourself accountable. They looked at everything they've done, and they can't come back and say they're sorry. So our process of letting go is so important to us. So if you got something to say to people on the other side, you're not going to hurt their feelings.
Right.
They knew who they were. I mean, good, bad, or otherwise. And so you just start that letter, Dear Dad, and then burn it. Let it go. And it's kind of like having a funeral for that stuff.
Right.
And we have to let that out in order to get to this higher understanding.
Yeah.
So the easiest way to hear from people once they've processed it and we've reached a place
Yeah.
is we'll dream of them.
Yeah.
And so we kind of go to the other side in dream time, and we get in that in-between place, and that's when we can have interactions with them. That's how most usual people have interactions with the other side, is through dream time. But you got to sleep, people.
Yeah, you gotta sleep.
You can't,
I get it.
not sleep.
I've been meditating and working on meditation, and I feel sometimes when I'm meditating and I'm getting like inspirations, I think of them as sometimes I know, like, okay, that came from
that's not from me.
Yeah, this came from, and I know specifically who.
Right, so
like,
so people pass away, pop in your head. That isn't really you wishfully thinking of them. That's them going, it's me.
right,
Right.
yeah,
But they're not allowed to do it all the time because they're not allowed to interfere with our choices or living. And so sometimes we would remain dependent on them if we knew that would happen all the time.
yeah,
So I can't even ring up anybody I want,
yeah,
and there's the process to it. So you just got to know, trust, and have faith that you do have a stage crew.
Right.
They are always helping you even when you can't tell who it is.
right.
That all these things that are happening outside us are them helping.
So while I got you on live,
Yes.
I got 2 questions for you.
Okay.
Okay. Does everybody figure out who their guide is? Like, you have your 7-foot Iroquois Indian.
Yes.
Does everybody figure out who theirs is?
Well-
like, while we're here? Or is that like,
Well, we all have guides. So
Right.
everybody who's left this plane and is on your stage crew is a guide. But there are souls that have stayed behind from other lifetimes. They didn't join us in this lifetime. They stayed behind just to be a guide to us. That's the guide I work with. Most people will not build a relationship with their guide.
okay.
Sometimes it comes as your grandpa. But that's really 30 different things coming
Right.
through your grandpa.
Right.
They come as your grandpa just to keep, because they don't really
Right.
have form anymore.
Yeah.
So they come as
Right,
grandpa.
just so you have some
So
kind
you
of
have some
vision
trusting-
or yeah.
Right.
Okay, some form of who that is.
I mean, it's kind of like the higher power.
Yeah.
Okay, you
Yeah.
don't have to know who they don't really have names.
Yeah.
But they give you names, or they're your ancestors, and that brings you comfort.
Yeah.
So then you trust that inner voice isn't you. This
Yeah.
is them helping you.
Right.
Right. And so I always joke, I said, you could call it Oscar. It doesn't matter what you call it. Just call it.
Yeah.
Know that it's helping you.
Right.
But most people do not build a relationship
Okay.
with their guides.
I was curious about that.
But we can work through that. But again, we don't really need to know who they are, because they're always helping you. And again, I think some people can't handle knowing some of that stuff.
Yeah. Okay.
It really depends, guys, on your level of spiritual maturity. And again, the universe will not allow you to be dependent on them,
Right. Right.
because we're here with free will to make choices. So you do the right thing, good things happen. You do the lesser thing, bad things happen.
Right.
It's pretty simple.
Yeah. And then my other question, do you believe, are we reincarnated?
Yes.
We come back again in a different
So
form.
indigenous people believe it's kind of like a wheel with spokes.
Mm-hmm.
And so our soul keeps coming in and out of these incarnations. So when we use the word incarnation, that's the life.
Right.
Reincarnation means we come back
Right.
into a new meat suit, into a new experience.
Yeah.
But we're going to all stand on every spoke.
Yeah.
So this is why they always say, don't ever judge the man across from you harshly, because if I stand in wealth, I'll stand in poverty. Sometimes I'll be male, sometimes I'll be female. So
Right.
we're all coming in and out of these different lifetimes
Right.
to gain a different perspective.
Right.
So that's why we never judge the man across from us, because we've either been him or we're going to be him. And how would you want to be treated? So yes, we do keep reincarnating. I personally, because of the work, I don't believe in it in kind of the Hindu way of advancing through different hierarchies of Like you don't start out as an ant, then you're a monkey, and then
Yeah. Yeah.
you don't reincarnate as human then eventually, because I don't see it that way, just based on what I know from the work. But yes, we do keep reincarnating. Usually not in the same lifetime.
Right. Right.
You wait for see, there's no time over there. So you wait for everybody to get back so you can all figure it out together.
Okay.
It's almost like a cast party
Yeah.
where you're like, oh, I was Marianne. Oh, you were you. What did we learn? Oh my God, that sucked. Sorry I killed you.
Sorry I killed you, man.
Sorry, I didn't mean to beat the shit out of you in 1998. And so that's what we do. We go back and debrief the whole thing.
Right. Right.
And then, once everybody's kind of back, then we.
Yeah. I definitely, in my journey, I believe in that now. I was raised Roman Catholic, and so
was I.
Death and you're done. You're in heaven for the rest of infinity.
Or hell.
But
or limbo.
Or limbo, right. I was when Jasmine and I went to West Virginia, though, we went to, I don't know how to pronounce the person's name, but it's somebody's golden palace. And they built this golden palace in honor of this man who had come to teach so many lessons. And he was, just not a prophet, but he was here to inspire and to teach. Okay. And so in that golden palace, there was a painting, and it was beautiful. It was, it showed like a constant spirit in waves, and then the life cycle, baby to adolescent to grown up to old man to baby to adolescent. And it was a really powerful picture. And I've really been thinking about that a lot lately. And then also in that grief process and that healing process, knowing that those people who have gone on, they're not gone.
Right.
It's not done and over.
So indigenous peoples call the act of the body dying as dropping your robe.
Yeah.
It's like taking off your clothes and stepping into the shower. In
Right.
fact, you leave the body before it actually expires.
Yeah.
Like I had a young girl that died in a car accident. And so she was standing there talking to her grandpa.
Yeah.
She's like, Granddad, what are you doing here? He goes, no, honey, I'm not there. You're here.
Yeah.
And she's like, what? I mean,
Yeah.
she didn't even know she left the body.
Mm-hmm.
And so, again, the body protects us from some of this stuff. And, so the other side is not away from us.
Right.
It's going on. This is why we have chemicals that keep us in our reality. And this is why when you deal with drug-induced schizophrenia, people are seeing delusional things and everything. And, again, once you mess that up, it's hard to get back into a state. But anyway, so just know you're being helped. You don't really need to know who it is, but
Yeah.
inspired means to breathe into in spirit. It's the Latin for in spirit.
I know it. Part of me, I mean, obviously I say thank you all the time, but like, I just, sometimes having that like more personal conversation and saying thank you for things, but I know, like you said, when those ideas pop in my head, it's not those ideas popping in my head. It's somebody dropping those ideas in my head. And
Yeah,
so,
I'm
hey,
like-
thanks.
Well, I used to write these beautiful essays on life.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh my God, I'm good. And then I realized it wasn't me.
It wasn't you.
No. So this is a cute story. I don't want to wrap up with this. So Jared was raised in this environment. So he has a much bigger understanding. So one day his teacher called me and she goes, Marianne, I have to tell you, Jared wrote the most beautiful thing I've ever read. She goes, it was not what I asked for. But what he wrote, like, just made me cry. She says, so I had to tell you about it. So anyway, so Jared goes home from school. And I said, Jared, your teacher called. He's like, oh, no. And I said, what? He goes, I knew she would. He goes, so she asked me, and he's like 9, I think, or 10. And he goes, well, she asked me to asked us to write about what is the meaning of life, like what constitutes life. Well, Jared went to Catholic school, so
Right.
Anyway, so he goes, I had no idea what she wanted, so I asked your guide to tell me what is the meaning of life. He wrote it down.
Yeah.
And that's what he turned in. He goes, I cheated, Mom. I go, Jared.
Cheated.
Mark Twain then cheated, and so
Right.
did Khalil Gibran and all the other amazing writers out there.
So funny.
Do you really think they wrote those words? No, they were inspired to write those words. I said, so you didn't cheat, but, again, that's pretty awesome. So, yeah, he goes, I didn't write that, Mom. Your guide wrote that. I'm like, okay. But, yeah, the teacher was just like, whoa,
Yeah.
Because I always write these
That's
things, and I'm like, God damn, I'm good. This is amazing shit. And then I realized, eventually it was not me. Nope. Oh, my God, you guys are so cute. So, Rhonda, Aw. Thank you so much. Rhonda said it made a difference for me. I love you, Marianne. I love you too, Rhonda. You know, and when it's so the cool thing is, see, like I know everybody. I know their backstory.
Yeah.
And I know how powerful the experiences that got them to me, whatever happened to them.
Right.
And watching them like rise and change and evolve, it's mind blowing.
It is.
It's mind blowing.
Yeah.
That's how I feel like when I first go to see somebody and they're in sober living.
Yeah.
Oh, girl, they come in looking rough.
Yeah.
You know, right out of wherever, jail
Yeah,
or whatever.
right.
And then 3 months later, they're actually eating food. They're
probably gained 40 pounds that they needed. Yeah.
Right, and they've been sleeping.
Yeah.
You know, their skin's cleared up.
Right.
It's like night and day. It's so beautiful to watch the metamorphosis. Oh
It's
my
been
God.
really cool some of the times. So we do street outreach, and then we do some work like in treatment centers and naloxone trainings and things like that. And so we went to a couple times. We've gone into like different establishments, and people walk up to us and they're like, "Oh, I met you last summer, when you were doing outreach." And it usually doesn't click because this person doesn't look at all like what they looked like when we
Right.
met them. And so Jasmine and I remember people by location. Like, do you remember that guy at, 93rd and Kinsman or whatever? And so this kid, the one time I remember, oh my gosh, he had like kind of breezed past us and then circled back because he saw we were handing out Narcan. I knew exactly how he was feeling. He was so dope sick that day. He was on his way to work. Like, he was miserable. And when we saw him, he was in one of the treatment centers. And like, it was the best thing. And I didn't recognize him at all. And he's like, "Yeah, I met you guys over by Franklin Circle." And I'm like, oh my God.
Right?
No,
it's just like,
Yeah.
like,
it's the best.
It is, and it doesn't take much. Just loving people,
Right.
giving them a safe place to just heal.
Yeah.
Because your body's healing, your emotions are healing, your spirit is healing, and having that safe place is you can't pay for that.
Right.
So that's what you guys do when you support us.
Yeah.
That's the work, and it is amazing. Oh no, I saw somebody. Oh my God, when they came in, no teeth. Their
Yeah.
skin's awful. They got their teeth. I'm like, oh my God.
Right.
Like, it was like, oh,
You're a whole new person.
Like, it's and they were
Upgrade
just
that meets
shining
Right. Yeah, that's
because they
always.
felt good, and they had their some confidence back. Oh, it's amazing. I just love this work. It's almost like you're just watching people just blossom. All right, no hot dogs. Yeah. Oh, good for you,
Oh
Rhonda.
my gosh, hot dogs.
You off those damn things? Do we have a choice? I know. I've had people go, "I'm not fucking coming back." I'm like, well, first of all, okay. Yeah, you'll be back. Yes, we do have a choice. But again, what are you going to do? You could be a guide. There's times we're guides. There's sometimes we're in the life. Anyway, you guys are so cute. I am so absolutely grateful for you guys joining us tonight. And I'm so grateful that you joined me.
I'm grateful
my
you
God.
invited me.
It's so fun to watch the synchronicity of things.
Yeah, I love it.
God is good.
So good.
I'm telling you, if it wasn't for divine moments, I wouldn't be here. Anyway, Sara
Look at this
Szelagowski.
kid still sitting back here.
Oh, that's Jared. I used to
He's
take him to
such-
events with me, and he would hand out the herbs or hand out my business cards, or he would go to weddings with me.
Oh, I should have tea.
He'd have his little outfit on, and he'd go sit in the back row, and I would do a wedding. And we were at this wedding one time, and these people wouldn't even kiss each other. It was so weird. Jared goes, Mom, I don't think they're going to stay married. I go,
Hopefully, Jared,
not up
you're
to
right.
me. I just sealed the deal. Now
Right.
the rest is on them,
Right.
But yeah, he goes, why wouldn't they even kiss each other? I go, I don't know. People don't get married just because they love each other. But anyway, yeah, so that's the stuff your kids see, and you're like, oh my God, that's so funny. So yeah, this is good stuff that he's here, and
Yeah.
you're bringing him in all these
I
different
know.
environments.
He's been really good, and I was surprised too. It's an hour and 8 minutes we're at, but he has like a 1 hour time span for like 1 hour
I
meetings
know,
that
but you
he's
know
been
what?
going
It's
to.
peaceful here.
It is, yeah,
It's very peaceful here, guys.
yeah,
There's no trauma, no chaos. And so when you're in here, it's like there's no time.
right,
Everybody's just kind of chill.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh no, where was I the other day? I could not wait to get out of there.
yeah.
It's like
Oh, I
like
hate those.
it's like claustro. I'm good with chaos, but I can only be in there for so long. And again, I got to be prepared for that.
Right,
So when we go into those environments, you got to eat your Wheaties because you don't know what you're going to be up against. And I can only hang in there for so long.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, this is why it's peaceful because it's peaceful here. peaceful here, people.
too,
See,
too.
look what it did for this little cutie pie. You too can feel peaceful if you come here to a village.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, and we hug each other, and we don't judge you, because we probably did something worse.
I'm glad we didn't have this video up the whole time. You're right. I'm glad you just
Oh, why
scrolled
we
that
don't
up.
watch
It's
ourselves?
just so weird.
No, it's weird watching yourself on video. I mean,
Yeah.
the first time I saw it, I was literally horrified. The first time Jared recorded himself, he goes, "Do I sound like that?"
Right.
I go, "Yes."
When I hear myself on voicemails, I'm like, oh.
Well, see,
what
I
an
developed a
annoying
phone voice. So when I did phone work forever. And so I'd be like, "Marianne Goldweber, how may I help you?" You know, kind of thing. And I had this one guy, a client one time goes, "Do you do phone sex? 'Cause you'd be really good at that." I'm like, "Well, you know, if I ever lose my day gig, there's always that, right?" All right, kids. Well, thank you so much for joining us. So we have Sara Szelagowski from,
Very good.
thank you. I'm very good with names once I get the hang of it.
Yeah.
From Project White Butterfly. If you get a chance and you want to donate to her cause, you're welcome to go to your website.
Yep. ProjectWhiteButterfly.org.
Or, you know, if you want to support a village and the work that we're doing in the world, I have a donate button on my website, which is mariannegoldweber.com.
And this Sunday at, what is your Sunday? What is your Sunday?
Oh, my Serenity Sunday.
We're bringing Project White Butterfly cards. So if you want to help make some of those cards, come to Serenity Sunday this week and we'll get you
Yes,
active.
and you can, yeah, and if you guys want to do any donations of body care products or feminine products or anything that we can, you know, a food card can't buy, you know, lotion, shampoo.
Men's clothes are in high demand.
Yeah, men's clothes are always in high demand because
Yes.
men never throw anything away.
Right. And men wear much less clothes than women do. So we have bags and bags and bags of women's clothes and a
Yeah.
few sweatshirts for men. So if you have any summer clothes that guys that you want to get rid of, we could use that to hand out at outreach.
Exactly. So you bring them here. You guys bring them here, and I will get them where they got to go, whether Sara picks them up or we drop them off at one of the sober facilities. You know, again, I don't really handle clothes that much. Sarah's asking for men's clothes specifically, then we can do that. But yeah, do not drop your used clothes here.
Yeah.
We cannot get rid of women's clothes. Like there's too much of it. Yeah, women's clothes. Women are just, you know,
Yeah.
clothes horse. So
Yeah.
you know, it's style sensitive with women, and it's very hard to get rid of women's clothes, guys. So you're better off going to take them to Goodwill and Salvation Army. Sometimes they'll give you a voucher when you're in a sober facility to go into these places and buy something.
Right, right.
And then you can pick what you want, you know, and all the proceeds then go back to services. So, yeah, I like Salvation Army. I personally do because it
Yeah.
goes back into recovery resources. Goodwill is more developmentally disabled stuff. So whatever your calling is or wherever you think it's going to serve you the most. But yes, we do need body care products and things that we can hand out: toothpaste, toothbrushes, floss, anything that you yourself couldn't live without. That's what we use. So.
Right.
If you want to just drop those things off here, give me a call and let me know, or come on Sunday and fill out some cards and or you can schedule the setup with Sara to find out where she's going to be, and you can come and volunteer.
Yeah, see what we do. Come join
Yeah,
us. It's
yeah.
so fun. Talk
And
to people.
Talk to people, and I'm going to be going to more of these things too, where I can, you know, do some grief outreach.
Yeah,
You know,
awesome.
yeah.
I love it.
I love you.
I love you too.
Thank you for coming on to
Thank
my
you
show.
for having me.
All right, kids. Well, I hope you
So
have a
fun.
wonderful evening. Keep the peace.
She's got such a good setup here, doesn't she?
I know, right? This is where the magic happens. People come in and
So
go, "This
nice.
is where you do this?" I said, "Yes, it's not that big a deal." Anyway, keep the peace, pray for our world, and let's all do our part to be the change. Thanks for joining me.